Richard DeMoncas. Rich is the training specialist for Indiana, LTAP, at the Liles School of Civil Engineer at Purdue University in West Lafayette. Rich is responsible for developing Indiana LTAP training events and providing training and assistance on issues related to Indiana local government transportation agencies. Since joining the LTAP Center in the fall of 2017. Rich has directed the Indiana LTAP Road Scholar Program and provide technical training in the area of asset management that include payment structures and fleet assets. Prior to coming to Indiana LTAP, Rich worked for the Lake County Highway Department for 20 years as a heavy equipment mechanic, fleet facilities manager, and supervisor. Rich's background is in asset fleet management can be traced back to his service as a construction mechanic in the U.S. Navy CBS. Rich's favorite saying on training, I would rather train my employees and have them leave than not train them and have them stay. Please welcome Rich.
Thank you, Pablo. Thank you all. Kevin Ashton, How to Fly a Horse. I'm going to read the book. I like that. I like the building blocks. A lot of what we do at LTAP starts out kind of with the basics, and we develop a topic and we talk about a topic, and we continually progress through a topic to try to train, to go from beginning, entry level to you know, expert or whatever you would call that in a topic, and then an election comes and we start all over again. So the building blocks keep reoccurring, right? So thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for the introduction, Pablo. And I'm so glad that Dale asked that question. If you know your local LTAP, if you don't, find your local LTAP. As a community, we share a lot. I learned so much from the folks in other states and what they do, and we are constantly self-assessing what we do in Indiana with what occurs in our neighboring states and other states across the country. We do have an annual LTAP meeting where we get together and share this stuff and kind of learn from each other. That's typically in the summer months. I think we're in Virginia next year, is that right? So I always love the opportunity to talk about our local agencies in Indiana. As an LTAP center, each center is kind of designed or developed differently. At Indiana, a majority of our funding, 80–90% of our funding actually comes from the local share of the gas tax. So our mission, our advocacy, our efforts are directed by the locals, to the locals, for the locals. So a lot of what we do, it comes from that direction, or from that mission is developed with their input and their direction. So and each LTAP is a little differently in how it's structured or developed, but that's kind of how we have always been for quite a few years. So the presentation was LTAP efforts, or what we've been asked to do, LTAP efforts to advance pavement preservation. So when I got the request, I thought, wow, how did we get to where we are? How did that happen, right? Because you get so busy, so wrapped up in it. So it was nice to stop and look back and kind of build a timeline of how we got to where we are today, and then allows us also to kind of self-assess that and then look forward to where we're going to go with this. So as I said, our LTAP Center is made up of, we have an advisory board, and on that advisory board, we meet quarterly. That advisory board is made up of our local agency representatives. Those associations are County Highway Supervisor Association, Street Commissioners, elected official associations. The DOT is represented on that board. Purdue has a strong presence on that board. Notre Dame does not. So I was going to say IU. So one of the things that we know, the DOT and NDOT does a great job of managing their network, the state network. We kind of help the locals with the local road network. The DOT does a great job of reporting the condition of their infrastructure and their network. What we don't have is a good report in Indiana of what that local road condition is. And that's what we've been tasked by the General Assembly, our advisory board, folks, is to kind of give them an idea of where we are as a local road network in Indiana. We know the roads are deteriorating. We know we're not keeping pace. We just don't know to what extent that is. The local road network in Indiana is about 86,000 miles, with about 65,000 miles of those on the county system, about 18,000 in the city system, and an NDOT manages about 12,500 miles of state route. So it's a good-sized network, but we would love to be able to report on that local network annually, and as accurately as possible. So kind of going back in 2001 and then again in 2009, the Indiana LTAP Center produced a report called the LTAP Needs Assessment. What that was, very quickly, it was 16 counties were selected. Road segments within those 16 counties were chosen. They were rated using PASER and IRI condition ratings. Kind of fast forward to 2009, we went back to those exact same segments, rated them again, and kind of did some depreciation models for it within the report. That report reported about a $5 billion shortfall and about $800 million to maintain that each year. That report it was powerful when it was released, especially with the data that we had. We also had a report in Indiana from the Indiana MPO Council in southwestern Indiana that reported that the current funding supported about 18% of the network. Everybody's looking for accurate reporting. So how do we continue that effort as an LTAP center? So we have some requests, we have some desire to improve our network, but we need to really identify what that is. So as we kind of move forward into pavement preservation, what we did as an LTAP center is we kind of look at what our needs are, what our training is. I kind of feel that pavement preservation is a training problem. It's a training opportunity, but it's a training problem that can be solved with good training. So we kind of look at pavement preservation and what areas do we need to address, what kind of areas that do local agencies need to improve on, and what we need to talk about quite a bit, and how to manage a program. Identifying treatments are important, but identifying candidates and getting that right treatment, right place, right time as part of the everyday thinking of our local agencies, we felt was very important. So new products, new methods, candidate selection, but when to apply was something we really thought that we should get busy working with our locals on. And then the part that I felt that was important to me is no matter what you do as a local agency, if you can't report it, if you can't tell your story. As a local agency, we went to some of these communities and we said, so you have limited funding, you have this large group of roads that need to be reconstructed. What we want you to do is take some of that money and put it here to pavement preservation, wait about 5 years and you should see a return. You get thrown out of a room telling a story like that. But that's kind of what we had to do. So we had to be able we want to be able to get our local agencies to get buy-in within their agency, to be able to tell this story, not us telling them, but them going back to their communities and getting buy-in in their agency with their elected officials, and then in their communities, the public as well. So we kind of thought that was where the training should focus, and for us, there was 2 events that really kind of tied it all together for us, for me as well. In 2009, we had a national meeting. I attended a session on asset management efforts within different states, and it was Michigan, New Hampshire, and Utah. And what I learned there is the local effort for asset management is not necessarily what I had been reading from the federal highway and state level, that there was a difference. And I learned a lot from that session. In 2009, there was a Midwest Pavement Preservation Partnership meeting, first one I attended in Schaumburg, Illinois, and I really got to see treatments and treatment selection and treatment timings. So in my mind, I've kind of put those two together, and I believe as a trainer and what we do as a center is when we talk about pavement preservation, we talk about asset management, pavement management. The two really are hand in hand as we move forward with this effort. And then certainly the federal highway, when we started in this effort, we had a federal highway official in the Indiana office, a gentleman named Dan Kiefer, who we lost suddenly. He was a great advocate for us in Indiana on that local asset management effort and what that really looked like. And he was tremendously helpful as we kind of worked our way through this process. So what does that look like? So we go to some training, we learn some things, now we have to do what's called technology transfer, which is the mission of an LTAP center, to take this information and deliver it to our local communities. So that's kind of the timeline, the building blocks, incremental. And I will tell you at those 2009 and 2010 events, 6 people in a room talking about pavement preservation, right? But that builds, you gotta keep doing it, you gotta keep delivering it. So that just kind of shows how we as a center, that first IACS is the Indiana Association of County Highway Engineers and Supervisors. Actually, I brought Doyd in from Utah to do that presentation. But what it is just kind of getting that message out, talking about pavement management, talking about right place, right treatment, right time, talking about all those things that we have all heard here these last few days, getting them in front of the locals and just kind of hammering that point home. We have an event that's 103 years old, Purdue Road School, held on campus annually every year, consecutively for this is the 103rd, right? 103rd year. So at that event in 2010, 2011, and 2012, we made sure that our asset management, pavement management had a strong presence in that event. So we're starting to expose people to it. In 2012, we really started on designated workshops for the LTAP Center, and that has continued. In 2015, we brought Larry Galehouse and a few other speakers down from the National Center for Pavement Preservation, which fortunately logistically is not far from us, right? So we had some opportunity, we took advantage of that in 2015. So that's kind of what it looked like till we got to this year. And then in 2016, everything changed. So we had a pretty aggressive calendar. You can see we start out our year working with the National Truck Equipment Association. We talk about fleet asset management, how to manage your fleet. We had our workshops. We had a series of workshops devoted to pavements in the summer, County Bridge Conference, which is next week, and then we have a winter conference. But what happened in March is the Indiana General Assembly, somebody must have laid some materials on pavement management and asset management on the desks of a few legislators. I have no idea who would do such a thing, right? But evidently, a few of our state legislators learned about this, really liked it. There was a bill in the General Assembly for Indiana this year called the Community Crossings Grant Program, and what that did, that put a huge carrot out there. So my 6-person class that was growing grew quickly. So I'll kind of walk through what that is, but that had a profound impact on our training this year. The couple workshops turned into 14 locations in 60 days with over 550 people attending those courses. So it really kind of training on steroids this year. So it was a heck of a year. So, but we did manage to keep, and this is the effort of a center. Now our center's all of about 7 people, not all full-time, but we still managed to do our pavement preservation workshop in June. We brought Larry and Tom Wood in. We did concurrent sessions, that was really good. And then we do 2 sessions, one devoted to concrete pavements, one to asphalt pavements. I'm kind of guilty of having said this a few times. One of the first aspects of good pavement preservation is to build the pavement correctly first. If it's junk, don't preserve it. Build it right, then preserve it. So as part of all the pavement preservation, we still don't want to lose sight of good construction techniques, good quality controls. Make sure you're building something that is worthy of good preservation. So we don't want to forget that, so we keep working on that. Of course, our bridge and our APAI is our Asphalt Pavement Association. We have a great partnership with that. So kind of what you see here in general for an LTAP center is good partners. Finding good partners and putting together good events with them, using their expertise and transfer that information down to the local agencies. So here is what we propose next year for a training calendar. We've taken one of our Road Scholar courses, which is our diploma program in the LTAP Center, and we've devoted it to asset management. Everything else is pretty much the same as it was this year. We've added one conference on condition assessment using the PASER system, so we can get not so much us teaching them, but we can bring communities that are using that system in, and they can start communicating with each other and talking with each other. We would love communities working together to rate pavements. Not rating your pavements, go next door to that county next door and rate theirs, and then they can reciprocate. So that's the idea of that conference, is to get some technology transfer between these communities. So here's the grant program I kind of mentioned, what it actually looks like. It's a matching grant fund titled Community Crossings. What it is, it's administered by the Indiana Department of Transportation through their local programs division. It's all state money. It's dispersed through an application process. But in order to apply for that program or those funds, you have to have an approved, NDOT approved asset management plan in place. So what we did as an LTAP center is we kind of got the jump on it. So we worked with a few local agencies. We worked with, and Pat Connor, raise your hand, Pat. Pat was heavily involved in this, working with the local agencies and the DOT to develop a very simple, very easy to use, non-intrusive asset management plan, essentially rating your pavements, creating segments, and developing a 5-year treatment plan. We had local agencies doing that. They come to the LTAP Center to get the template. Once they do that, you can see the state match requires an asset management plan, and this is in that legislation. And also for the local match, you can raise new local revenue, but in order to do that, you have to have that plan in place to do that as well. So asset management is ingrained in this legislation as part of improving that local road network. So we're very happy with that. It's a lot of work. Some of the results. Community crossings awarded this year. This is what NDOT has reported. We think that number is going to fluctuate when some of the construction estimates come in, but $147 million this year went to local communities just to improve their local road network. Now that's not just new construction, it's new construction maintenance. There's even some money built in there for using in-house forces for those communities where you can apply for materials. The counties, our 92 counties, were $61 million. And 85.8 million for our Indiana cities and towns. This is the projected funding for the next few years with this program. We hope that changes. It's successful. We hope during the next General Assembly or the session that we can get some, we kind of know the amount now, so we got to get these numbers up if we can. And then we did actually, one of the things that Pat and I are very proud of, during this process, communities would call us and say, hey, I need help doing this asset management plan. Now, these aren't engineering departments. This is the chief of police of a community with 8 miles of road who's been tasked with managing it. Doesn't know the first thing about it. He did his asset management plan, right? Worked with Pat. The chief of police did his asset management plan, submitted it, and got money. So that's really cool. This was something that worked for all size communities. So how the program worked out, our group 1, population greater than 200,000, received 1% of the money. Group 2s got 7%. So from population size communities of 50,000 and greater, they got 8% of the money. Group 3s, 36% of the funds went to group 3 communities. Group 3 is 5,000 to 50,000 size communities. Group 4 is one of the groups that we, the wastewater supervisor, whoever it is 0 to 5,000 in population. Those small towns got $20 million. That's kind of cool. about 14%. And then our counties, which are unincorporated areas, our rural areas, got that 61 million, which is about 42% of the funding. So it's kind of cool. It was great to be a part of it. It was a lot of work, but it was kind of what we thought LTAP should be doing. So what's next for us? We're going to continue in the rating utilizing Paiser method. We're going to try to push for certification of our people rating roads. We'll probably look for that to be online and kind of take some of the load off the on-site training. Again, increase that online effort, which is kind of what Dale was doing. Pat and some of the other staff members are really looking into our role or the role of software in this within that community. Our friends up north in Michigan have that RoadSoft program, which is pretty robust, and some of our neighboring counties to the border of Michigan are already using it, so we're kind of looking into that. And then just expanding asset management from pavements and bridges on to what else? Fleets, you know, all these other things that that they have to do every day besides manage pavement and pavement preservation. So that's all I got. Thank you all for listening. I'd be happy to answer any questions.